that accident,
Car accident.
car accident, that nearly took my life and the people who were in the car, God miraculously saved myself, my younger brother, and a friend. And as a result of that, the car was still intact, so I was about to drive the car when I heard the voice of God.
I interviewed a bisexual and a bisexual woman and a gay man, because I just wanted to find out what's going on with them.
Hey guys, how you doing today? Welcome to another beautiful episode of the Leadership Podcast, and I'm excited to meet this couple. This is my first time meeting them, believe it or not, but they were highly recommended by my good friend. And we have, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Israel Olaore. I'll bring his wife up later, but how are you, sir?
Doing pretty good. It's good to be here.
Really good to see you. One quick thing I noticed is how fit you are. And I believe you're in your 60s.
Yes, 63.
Yeah.
Heading towards 64.
64. And you are shaped, prim and proper. What's the secret?
Exercise.
Okay.
And good diet.
Good diet.
Yes.
What do you take out of your meal?
My carbo is not too much. I just take a little bit more vegetables and fruits and nuts.
How about people like us who purge with vegetable purges?
Well, it depends on your constitution. My constitution, I think what I've discovered is that it's always good to make sure that my body has things that are fiber rich, so that I can cleanse my colon. Because you don't want things that will clog up your colon. The colon health, especially once you reach 40, heading on towards 60, your colon health is very, very important. And people have to do colonoscopies to make sure they don't have polyps, that are precancerous. So that's why I always make sure that every day there's elimination, so.
Well, let's get to your background before we start the medical lectures. So what's your background? What did you study? Your first degree, second degree, and all that?
My first degree was in philosophy from the Great Ife, University of Ife.
Great, but I'm not from Ife.
Great Ife, I studied philosophy with an intention to go into law. But while I was in my second year, I had this call, this spiritual awareness that made me decide to give everything to God. And by the time I was finishing my philosophy degree, I was invited into pastoral ministry, and I went into pastoral ministry and I was in it for, quite a long time. But my master's is in theology because of that. But my PhD is in leadership and administration, leadership and administration of higher education. So I'm working with universities, K-12 institutions, that's been my educational background.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so that means you gave your life to Christ in the university. Was it the evangelicals then?
Yes. I had an encounter. I had a very brash, traumatic encounter. There was an accident, and that accident,
car accident
that nearly took my life and the people who were in the car. God miraculously saved myself, my younger brother, and a friend. And as a result of that, the car was still intact, So I was about to drive the car when I heard the voice of God saying, "Dele, I need your life," because my middle name is Bamidele. And he spoke to me directly. And I told the other people that I just heard the voice of God, "Dele, I need your life." And we all laughed because we were too young. We're university kids. But 3 weeks after that, I was sharing as a testimony on campus. And one of the persons was mindful enough to help me recognize that I'll forgive your sins and remember your transgressions no more. Because for me, as a teenager, I've done everything teenagers do, but I was scared of dying. And he said, God said, I'll forgive your sins. And I said, wow, I want that. So March 18, 1981, I surrendered. So that was the beginning of the journey. But it was not until 1982 that I felt the call. So I gave my life in 100 level, but I felt the call to ministry in 1982.
What ministry was that?
The Seventh-day Adventist Church was the umbrella ministry that I started working with, because I was raised in the Seventh-day Adventist fellowship. But over time, God gave me a broader ministry, that spans multi-denominations, and even other.
So is Seventh-day Adventist, evangelical or Pentecostal?
I would categorize it as evangelical, because I think the Pentecostal
was an evolution from the
the traditional evangelical mainstream denominations. So I think it's an uptake from that for those who felt, we want something more. We want an experience of the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, being born again, filled with the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues and all that.
Does all that happen in Seventh-day Adventist?
We have two dimensions. My story is quite unique.
Yeah.
Because in 1990, as a young minister, I was impressed that the Seventh-day Adventist Church needed some infusion of Pentecost.
Yeah.
So in 1990, we started a small group, and I was pastoring a church in Yaba at the time. And it was quite traumatic because the church leadership struggled there. They were, and so but out of that came a movement.
Wow.
And that movement has grown throughout, Nigeria and other parts. The Victory Sanctuary Seventh-day Adventist Church is that flavor of the Seventh-day Adventist Church that has the Pentecostal power. We have branches and outreaches all over Nigeria. The US, we have some units in the UK. So that was something that God did in 1990, because most of us came out of Ife, and many of them are pastors. I have a pastor friend, Pastor Buki Ajide, that I think, I would like you to meet him at some point.
Okay. That would be good.
The leader of that movement.
Wow. Yeah. Do you, by the way, know Ope Banwo?
Banwo?
Ope Banwo.
Okay.
Or Leke Alda.
Leke was our contemporary. My wife and I are personal friends.
Ope Banwo is that said too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed Ope.
Yeah.
But Leke and I, we were in the same group. We were running together. When I met my wife, Leke, we were all hanging together. There was Ovana Eta, there was Pastor, he's in Atlanta right now. We have so many people within that range. So Leke was in that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's not get to leadership before we get to marriage. What is your definition of leadership?
My definition of leadership is evolving, from a solo person who is a star to a constellation.
Okay.
A constellation of stars. So which is more of teamship. And Keith Ferrazzi, in his book, Never Lead Alone, propounds this new concept of leadership that I subscribe to, because I see it as a place where everybody owns the mission and not just one visionary who is trying to own the vision and slugging it along. But when we build a twinship where everybody is co-elevating the mission and co-elevating one another, then it changes the game because everybody has ownership. It's like, this is ours.
Wow. Okay.
So that is my definition of leadership. Leadership is taking everybody with their gifts, and I'm elevating you, and you are elevating me, and together we are making the system, which is the organization, shine and become more productive, you know. And then the second dimension to that is moving from conflict avoidance to candor. Because sometimes we don't want to tell truth in leadership, you know, because if I tell you, Chiaba, that your cap is a bit slanted, you say, who are you? No idea. You have nobody. You say, right idea. So, but when is candor, which means that, sir, can I lock antlers with you? That is, can I engage you? Say, you give me permission. Your cap is slanted. Okay. You adjust it.
Okay.
You know? So that the system is better. But if I'm too scared of you to tell you what is my feedback of how to elevate the system, then the system loses out.
So what, I mean, there's this argument, Nigeria is too patriarchal, you know, Africa is too patriarchal, just masculine energy everywhere. What do you think the men of Africa need to learn about leadership?
I think the men of Africa need to learn that what women bring to the table is valuable, so that they need a place at the table and not be on the floor or in the kitchen
Or in the other room.
or in the other. You know, that their voice is needed on the table. Meaning that if I'm able to stand as a man and not be scared of what my woman has to say about what I'm working on, it will make what I have to say better, because she's going to look at it from another dimension, because I can only see one dimension. But with other set of eyes, which is now flavored by gender, I can see it from another dimension. You know, I'm totally phlegmatic with some sanguinity. My wife is absolutely sanguine with a bit of choleric. You know, left to me, my colors will always be gray. But I showed up today in a purple outfit.
Madam.
You know, so that is what they bring to the team. You know, we need to make room at the table. We men.
How do African men make room at the table without being accused of harassment? So I give an example. I mean, I've had this argument with politicians, and they say, look, sometimes we're doing meeting 2 a.m. You see the point now.
2 a.m.
2 a.m. I mean, to review certain political decisions, you know, and all of that. But you ask a woman to come for a meeting 2 a.m., the whole thing begins to look shady.
True.
Right? So we will then be forced to do our meeting 2 a.m. without a woman.
True.
Right? And that automatically means the woman is not at the table.
True.
Okay?
True.
And when dealing with women too, there's always that sensitivity of, I cannot talk this way. You know, I can't play too much before it's misconstrued for something else. So how do... And by the way, I'll ask your wife too, because I want the women to talk to women as well. But I want to hear your perspective on that.
I think our willingness to shift, you know, to make some adjustments. Making room at the table in its first place is a major shift.
Yes.
Because we don't see it as necessary, or because traditionally we don't do it, or we've not done it. So when we do it, it's a major emotional shift. And I think the example of time that you gave, I think if we can make a place where it is not necessarily
not 2 a.m.
2 a.m. It's, you know, I think that's...
They are willing to not make it 2 a.m. The challenge is the demand. right? And some of this conversation is plotting. This is politics. Our party has to win against the other party, right? Yes, you're welcome. Most daytime, we have other things we need to do, and to be honest, to be at the top globally, people can say otherwise, require putting more than 8 hours. We know this, right? More time, more engagement, more effort. So again, I'm not a politician, but I'm just saying these are things you hear from masculine, because they are the ones that have this problem. In the private sector, we don't have that problem, right? In the private sector in Nigeria, at least I know of our company, men and women are paid equally. I mean, we have more female leaders. That's not really an issue. It's what you bring to the table. But it's in the African politics, African leadership, and at the political level, and sometimes even at religious level, that begin to exclude women.
True. I think, again, going back to what you said, we almost take for granted that women are not willing to be in those spaces.
Okay.
Women are rugged. In the U.S. Army, it's been known that women in the Army have stamina. They can go for longer.
Yeah.
But men have brute strength.
Yeah.
Because, you see, I use titanium to describe women. Titanium is 45 times stronger than steel.
Wow.
And so I see women, from those who have the biblical Christian dimension, the woman was made out of refined material, whereas man was made out of dust.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So women have the capacity to take on rigor.
Yeah. In the long term.
In the long term, exactly. So I think to think that women will not be willing to come to a 2 a.m. meeting is an assumption. We invite them and let them make that decision, and then respect them when they are there, because it's the suspicion of harassment or, our own unspoken desire to flirt, can be that.
Yeah.
But if we give them the assurance that, look, this is a rugged place.
Yeah.
Because in the army, women and men are in the trenches. They don't have women platoon and, men platoon. I'm talking about countries that have male and female in the same, service. So what I'm saying is that it should be left up to the women to decide and not exclude them because we are making those exemptions for them. If they want to play at the table, then let them come to the table.
So, I mean, you have 27-year-old son and down that spectrum. What are the qualities of a good father?
Presence is the first one. Presence for access. A father needs to be present. It's been shown that where there's father absent, children lack a lot of cognitive skills because they are looking at the father for cues of what should be or what should not be done, and direction, and protection and a sense of safety. So presence is the critical factor so that the child can have access to have their questions answers, their opinions corrected or, validated or affirmed, because when a child is affirmed by the father, it goes a long way to boost their self-esteem, to let them know, what, I matter because I matter to my father.
True.
But when the father is not present and it's all being done by the mother, there's something still missing. The mother is doing the best she can, but when the father's presence is there, the children grow well-rounded, academically, emotionally, and spiritual leadership. They pick it up. You see, because leadership in the family, which men provide in most cases, is more caught than taught. So it's like osmosis. Children, you see a child walking, you have a son, okay, and is it the 12-year-old?
Mhm.
Yeah. Before you know it, your son will start walking like you.
Yeah, in fact, because I use wristband, he now uses too. He wants to wear that. True.
You know, so it's caught. You didn't tell him,
Yeah.
go and get a wristband and
Mhm.
use. He just caught it. I remember when our son was, I'm not sure which of them, I was looking for my car keys. And at that time, I used to clip my car keys to file like a hook.
Yeah.
I clip it to my belt hole. And we looked for that key. We couldn't find it. He was taking it. We found it in his dad. He put it in his own diaper. Nobody taught him. But it's like, this is what my dad see. I think I can do the same thing with the key. You know? So presence is the best gift. And then affirmation, verbal words, you know, speaking into the life of the children. Wow. Letting them hear that there's a soft side to the father, not just the tough side, the soft side that says, son, I'm proud of you. You know, son, congratulations on that award that you just got. How are you doing? I have my eldest son, our eldest son is 37 and his own son is 9. Wow. Okay. That's his first son. And they can call me anytime. Well, the second one is 35. Then the third one is 33. Then the youngest is 21.
And they're all boys.
They're all boys. 4 boys.
Why did you cheat your wife?
I tried.
We stopped boys.
We stopped for
I mean, you alone 5-0. Hey, you won. They must be pampering you in the house.
You know, so that's what I see, that a father's voice.
Wow.
Father's voice. When a father speaks, the children honor it because they know he doesn't speak often, but when he speaks into their lives. You know, he speaks a blessing. His presence gives them assurance, you know, and the things he tells them by direction. You see, another thing I've also noticed is that fathers should not be given too much direction, especially now for my adult children. I wait for them to come and get it. Because if you give too much, it will be seen as though you are trying to control them.
That's true.
Yeah.
True. Oh, wow. This is amazing. I wish you can continue, but I want to hear from Dr. Mrs. So, I'm ready to switch here. Okay, so let's just continue from where we stop. Let's start by knowing you. I'd like you to introduce yourself.
Okay. So, my name is Augusta Yetunde Olaore. And the wife of Israel Baridele Olaore, the mother of 4 amazing boys, and also 3 daughters-in-law, daughters that I received through marriage, and 1 upcoming handsome young man.
Wow.
As a person, I'm passionate about building amazing, blissful family life experiences. So that's, I'm a child of God.
First and foremost.
Yes, I'm a child of God. Yeah.
Why does it always look like mothers find it difficult to introduce themselves outside of their children? You know, and I'm not saying they don't, but women seem to feel fulfilled to say, I'm a mother, I'm a wife. You know, it's one of, for most women, not all, it's a major accomplishment. You know, why is it that way? Particularly your generation, of course, not the new generation. So your generation, I love the younger generation are watching, and I think they need to imbibe some of the values of your generation, because when you look at it, it wasn't all bad. There were a few cases where people had abusive husbands in your generation where they people felt, my dad just cheated my mom. I will not allow that happen. But for most part, we've seen people of your generation age gracefully. You could see some in their 60s, some in their 70s, and it just feels like you should get married all over again. All right. So why does it look like that?
Well, it's very natural for a woman to identify herself by the relationships of her life.
Okay.
Even our physique says it, when you think about a woman that has given birth, it's significant because it says that for 9 months another human lived in your body. So you don't just detach yourself. We have what I will call a purpose that talks about nurture. I mean, you can see my husband's chest is flat, right? Mine isn't. God had some intentionalities so just even by our makeup of our bodies, we're relationship prone beings, right? So, and we find a lot of fulfillment in that, in successful relationships, and also culturally, that's demand, sometimes it's negative, really, but the culture sometimes also puts like when a home, whether it falls or it rises, it's on the woman. If the children, they say so if finally a woman has a successful child, of course, that is the feather in her hat, right? So I think those are some cultural and physiological reasons why women are more comfortable and prone to the identity being connected to their relationships, either to their husbands or to their children.
Why is the subject of family? I mean, you guys have a do we call it business or a ministry?
Family life business.
Yeah, you have a family life business. Why is family life important to you? Why family life? Of the many things you can be doing.
Because it is the fundamental unit of the society. Everybody, no matter how high you fly, came from home, which informs what we call nature and nurture, right? So how a person is raised determines how they show up in the world. We are victims of what happened in the bedrooms and in the kitchens and in the dinner rooms, right? We have traumas that people have experienced that is showing up in the way they run the world, they run the country, they run businesses. We've also seen that when the family life is stable, it cuts across financial health, physiological health, right? But when it is off, there are people who literally die because something is amiss in the family. I mean, like, not just they die emotionally, they die physically. So we now see that if we're going to start repairing
the society,
then it has to start from the home.
Family unit.
We actually prefer a word that says re-engineering, right? If we're going to start re-engineering the society, then it has to come from the home. The way fathers treat their children, the ways, children feel empowered or disempowered, fighting crime. It starts from the home.
Yeah, true.
It starts from the home.
But does the society respects what you guys do? I've always argued, does the society value the place of family life, having a family life coach, having to subscribe for sessions with a professional, around your family line?
That's the challenge. That's the challenge. Outside Nigeria, there's a greater
It's a big
awareness. It is more celebrated, right? In Nigeria and other sub-Saharan African countries, it's different because when we talk about family, we talk about issues of shame, we talk about issues of fear, we talk about, stigmatization, and then we talk about privacy. It's like, I don't want everybody knowing my business, right? So we tend to keep to ourselves, and because it's something that everybody does, who needs to go to university when I have mommy, daddy university? The way they did it, exactly the way they did it.
family life coach.
And your average person in the market can tell you one or two things.
Yeah.
Of course, let's look at our report card. Is it actually working? We had this trend about last year. I don't know if you heard about it. The African parents, where my husband and my son, my son just posted something. There was this African parenting trending, like, talk about your African parent, and everybody was like, my African father, my African mother, and our son was like, no, that's not how my father is. And then he just posted something. I mean, now we have about 1.8 million views on it. And what is it saying? That where children are saying how the African parents' image has been so detrimental to them, how they are, they are having a lot of pain, they're having a lot of trauma, and all those things. So that's, unfortunately, we think we don't want to address it, but it is there. But it's getting better now because, we belong to a network of family life practitioners. The thing that will help it go more in being supported is having that financial
practitioner in Nigeria or in the US?
No, here in Nigeria.
Okay.
Oh, we have network.
I know there's one Praise for Where was it?
Exactly. We're in the same, family systems engineering with Praise for Where. Yeah. Yeah. So it's evolving, and there's better appreciation now than it used to be, but definitely it can be better.
Will you say you have more clientele in Nigeria or in the US? Because you're also based in the US.
Yes. Well, I would say that the Nigerian market is actually, it's probably about the same.
Really?
Because it's about the same, and this is the reason why. The Nigerian market is not as regulated as it is in the US. In the United States, you can only practice with certain licenses, but once you have it,
and some of it is restricted to a state.
Yeah, but once you have it, then you have insurance support that can help pay.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where the financial benefit comes in. Nigeria is not as regulated. So anybody can say they are coaches or counselors, right? So the field is open, but each person now has to distinct themselves. So that is where we, who have the certifications, that have the training, can actually be valued. Like, this is not quack practitioner, right? This is someone who actually went to school, got trained, a psychologist, a counselor, a social worker, and then, encouraging people that if you have a headache, to go to the hospital to see the doctor. So what if you have a relationship ache or a heart ache? What do you do about that?
Who attends to
that? Who attends to that? Exactly. And yeah.
My next question is, what do women really want? In marriage, a place of work, leadership. Because men always ask this question: what do women want?
women want. I will talk about this woman. I will talk about this woman. And I think
So are you admitting that women are complex?
oh,
Right.
we
Well,
I will say that
that complexity sometimes affects men in understanding how do we really deal with women.
yeah, women are fearfully and wonderfully made in our own unique ways. One thing that I will say that I appreciate and other women can identify with is a sense of security,
Okay.
feeling safe
Okay.
and affirmed.
Okay.
The African woman has gone through a lot when it comes to being disenfranchised by the you were talking about the patriarchal world, male dominance, male privilege.
Yeah.
Right. I say sometimes that I feel gendered a crime. That the only crime I have is that I'm a woman.
Wow.
People don't bother to know the content or the value.
But who is committing this crime? Because I would argue that if the population is virtually 50-50, who is really committing this crime?
Well, I would say that the environment, the culture that has celebrated and put preference for maleness.
It means the female are part of it.
Exactly.
Because
That's what I was going.
We need to.
That's what I was going to say.
Because sometimes when women talk, they don't come from that angle of admitting to say our fellow women.
Oh yeah.
Right, because it looks now as if the conversation needs to go to the men. I think a politician said something, and me, I had no choice but to agree with him, particularly on this particular subject, that we have 50% men, 50% women. The day women agree to really vote for each other, they already will win. Because we men are already divided, there will be multiple male candidates. So the day all women say, okay, we will vote for this particular female candidate, that female candidate is already winning. So this conversation about gender equality, gender balancing, how does the message work? Because oftentimes it's not being said to the women. And then it then make women to say, Kini Moshe, it's almost like what did we do? Exactly what did I do? I'm not even sure. Because I know, I for example, I've seen men give women more opportunities. I've seen women being able to wiggle their way.
Yeah.
As a young man growing up, I could see women find their way, and women, I say, my own crime now because I be man. Guys even say, you see now, you go attend to the lady. Because you're the boy now,
And then they will say ladies first.
Exactly, ladies first. Yeah. Even we the men feel we're always preferring and creating room for the women.
Yeah.
We keep hearing this noise about, it's not fair. So help me.
Yeah. So let me bring it this way. There's a difference between equity and equality.
Okay.
All right. And sometimes when we talk about equality, we miss it.
Okay.
Okay. Because equality is treat everybody the same. Right? Equity is
give me what is fair
to my situation. Yeah. That is recognizing the uneven playing field.
Okay.
Okay. So there's one cartoon that I've seen that really says it. So it's like equality is everybody gets, we want to make everybody equal, right? Yeah. So we give you 5 inches of height. All right. You get 5 inches, I get 5 inches. It's equal. Now, if you are already 5 feet tall and I am 3 feet tall,
yes.
when you give us all 5 inches, that makes you what? 8? And that makes me 5. Am I still shorter than you? Yes, I am.
I like that.
Right?
I like that.
So equity is like recognizing what is already prevailing.
Yeah.
And we're just still trying to come up, right? And you are very right when you said that it's not a male against female thing. You know how we used to do in primary school? debate. Men are better than women. You know, boys are better than girls. No, that's not what we're saying.
That's not it.
As a matter of fact, for this equitable society to be, we need male allies.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Once we accept that there is male privilege, once we accept that there is male superiority, right? Then it's going to take both working together to start making up the gap, the difference.
So my argument is this again. Believe me or not, but I've seen it everywhere. Women agree to gossip together. Women always agree to party together. Women always agree to do everything together, except to do business together.
And do you know why?
Why?
It's a scarcity mentality. It's a scarcity mentality that says we are all oppressed, and one finally gets up. No, I have to enjoy this and make sure that you don't come up, because there is that survival and that competition. But if every woman understands that,
which is a crap mentality.
Yeah, you know, if every woman understands that I'm here to make room for a sister as well, and that her shine doesn't take away from my shine, and we can all shine together. You know, that is that constellation idea of leadership, teamship. But when there's that competition and scarcity, it's like, I finally made it into the boardroom. Nobody else can come in here. You know, I finally, made it here. So that's one of those things that we have to reorientate ourselves. And it is also coming out of that, I call something, it's not original to me, the concept of intersectionality of women. Intersectionality of women says that, one, you have the gender barriers to go over. Then, if you are in a place of minority, so you are a woman, you are black, or you are a woman and you are Hausa, you are, and then if there is, unfortunately, if you are a woman and then you don't have male children, you are a less woman. It's like lesser, right? And there are women who will put themselves under undue pressure. Demo, not the husband, those the point. It's like, until I have a male child. And when we're asking that my husband won, I actually won. If I have 4 boys, I was able to produce him 4 times. He's not been able to give me what it's going to take. So I think it's just a whole a shift of mindset, where everybody is accepted. Now, I'm going back to your question again. What do women want? Women want to be affirmed and accepted for who they are, recognized for the uniqueness of their personhood.
But we need to do that because we men are certainly already understand that.
Let's do more together.
Support them.
We'll do more together.
Honestly, my opinion is women need to talk to women more about what they are talking to men about. I'm being honest. I think the conversation is to their fellow women
as well.
More. I mean it. Because once you have the majority, this is about majority, particularly in this area of leadership. Okay, we are going for election. It's the highest person that wins. If all women agree to say, we support our fellow woman, whether the men support you or not, you have won. And you always get the men to support you. At least you will get the normal portion to do that. So the conversation really, I say this often time when we talk about ending poverty, UN, income inequality, and all of that. Like you say, against similar issues, it's the wrong conversation. This same issue is what is happening with the DI in the US. you will start this conversation and say, okay, we want to promote equity, diversity, inclusion, all of that. It first started like, okay, it was supposed to be to help people of color, right? Before you know it, it became, oh, well, it has to involve homosexual. Okay. But before you know it, no, there are more genders. There is transgender, transgender. Before you know it, 18 new genders. Oh, come on. Now we're living merit. We're trying to solve a problem. Now we've created another problem. Because we're to review things, we're saying, hey, do we have transgender there? Do we have, a gay there? Do we have, if we don't have that,
So where does inclusion stop, and where does sense common sense to it? Yeah. I mean, I think that I believe that there's a very basic need of humans to have a sense of belonging and acceptance. It's very basic to everybody. And the moment that is threatened, there's a fight. Also knowing that man is falling. Okay? And everything that we're seeing is an expression of the fallen nature of man. In fact, I interviewed a bisexual and a bisexual woman and a gay man, because I just wanted to find out what's going on with them, right? And this was in a religious setting, okay? And, we just kept, and it was more of a question. It was non-judgmental. It's like, I want to understand. And I kept on asking, I said, where did all this come from? Like, looking at the physique of humans, there are distinct ways that shows that we fit. A male fits into a woman in our anatomy, just naturally. So where does this same gender thing, where did it come from? And I got the most honest response from them. She said, well, I guess it's sin. I guess it's a crookedness. It's a perversion. It's something that changed the natural setting of things. And then we now have all of this. So with that, what that says is we will encounter all this, how will I call it? The differences that are not the way they should be, right? But the way we start is valuing the personhood.
Yeah.
Okay?
I agree with you on that.
We value
irrespective.
We value the personhood. You see,
Male,
the more
female,
we do that,
just value me for being human.
Do you understand it?
Let's start there.
Whether it's
I agree
woman
with
or female, the moment
100%
we do that, do you know what? It automatically de-escalates the need to fight.
Absolutely. Just respect me for who I am. And I can, and I agree with you, because maybe because my mom played a major role. I mean, I won't be here without my mom. My mom was a civil servant, 5 children. She was still the breadwinner. So I am so pro women, supportive of women. I mean, I've never had, I even get surprised when I hear people say, oh, they feel cheated in a workplace. If anybody will complain in our workplace, is the men. I remember one day a lady accused one of our security men that he touched her where she didn't like. And then one of the female who was more senior said, apologize. And the guy said he's not apologizing. She didn't take my permission. I used to still be the CEO then. She didn't take my permission before she fired him. In fact, I didn't get to know until almost a week later. And I said, you did the right thing. That's our value. And that's what the same thing I will have done. Right? So, but when I then interrogate environment where female feel like they were not being acknowledged enough, most of the question I'm asking is also the feedback I got from those male, to say, we are not sure what the women want, right? In some cases, we've empowered a few women and it's still they bringing the house down. It's still from those few women that were empowered. And we're saying, what if you give this to more? What do you think will potentially happen? And I'm talking of people in political leadership and religious leadership. And part of the argument has been the emotions, right? That sometimes when issues happen, the emotional part of the woman overtakes the logical part. And before she will realize that she's used that emotional power, which is a powerful tool. And I used to put it this way, I say, I've seen women who will speak to you and you're having goose pimples. Most of the women will say powerful women in the world. Their oratory skill, the way they will use their emotions to hold the room bound. I've seen a woman, I'll never forget, I still told her, Mr. Oshika, speaking to governors one of those days. You could tell that all of them, the room was silent. That this woman, she got them to their bones. Right? Now, that's a very good use of that power, that emotion. I've also seen people use that same emotion, right, to accuse people wrongly. And once the tears are running, everybody come to say, hey, the other party must be wrong. Right? I mean, I've had counseling sessions because I started my journey as a pastor actually before I moved into business. I remember at the first time I started counseling people, just tell me what happened, then they are crying. I used to first feel bad. It took me years to say, look, cry. I will even give them tissue. I said, I will give you some meat, just because of course I had to be trained to understand that it's the way women are wired. But imagine somebody who doesn't even understand we're doing counseling. See the two of us together is when they say, hey, see how he's abusing this woman. See the way she just crying. Without just even understanding that she's just expressing the emotional part of her. How do we handle this? We've seen a case of a woman accused her husband of beating her and raping her. Johnny Depp. And this literally almost ruined the man. Of course, he fought the case in court and he won. Right? Of course, in developed part of the world, you have to compensate. In our part of the world, it's social media that judges the issue. Even if the judge eventually say you are not guilty, everybody will say you bribed the judge. You must have done something. How do we balance this kind of situation?
You're talking about the emotional, how we're able to affirm the emotional, how will I put it, powers of the woman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say first, we're all emotional, whether we're male or female.
Yes.
I mean, as humans, men also are emotional. When you talk about aggressiveness and that is emotions right there. Combat is emotion, right? Right?
I give it to you now. That one, take your flowers. I give it to you. You're right.
So, but it's like the women now can be abused, right?
Yes.
There is the positive part of it,
Yes.
in any way, and that is why, in fact, something happened yesterday, okay, and I was feeling somehow about it. And I told someone, I said, I have to put intelligence in this emotion.
Yeah.
Right?
I like that.
Because emotions they're not good drivers. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
for anybody.
Yeah.
So you want to put intelligence into it, that is bring in rationality, you bring in other cognitions that now regulates the emotions, right? And then you now use it as a tool, right?
Because that's what I've noticed with powerful women.
For the good, for the good,
Yeah.
for the good.
Yeah.
So I would say that, how do you in a corporate setting manage that? One, it is being aware, okay, being affirming, validating, and it's like, okay, if a woman needs to emote, okay, let her emote, right? And then, like you said, you don't shame them for it,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
And then after that, you now engage a conversation. So what are you actually saying? What do you want, or what happened? What you're saying, I have been a victim of it myself. Where there was a situation actually between my son and his female teacher, and the female teacher was in error, but the female teacher went to the principal and cried her eyes out. It's like, this child, the principal did not even want to hear what happened.
With that tear.
So my son came, is like, whatever you did to make this teacher cry like this, you must be a very disrespectful boy. Need a double idea, and unfortunately my son, we just came back from the US there.
No.
And he looked at me like, Mom, would you not deliver me from this cruel thing, And I just had to tell him that it's like, you know what, let it be, and then he did whatever he needed to do. And then later, and I spoke to the principal, I said, just because the teacher was crying, you did not even ask, so what happened?
Yeah.
What did she say? What did, so that's why, but you had to let that subside, because you can't, when something is flooded,
exactly,
you have to let the flood go down, and then, okay, let us now clear the basement, and do the repair. I mean, we are very intelligent. We are very intelligent. We are very strategic.
Yeah.
And then when we call on that part of intelligence, so it's putting intelligence into the emotions.
And maybe putting also will we say godly intelligence now?
Yes.
Because intelligence can be either way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The heart.
Yes.
It can intelligently lie against an innocent young man like this of Joseph.
Oh, yes.
And
Potiphar's wife. Oh, yes.
To jail, and nobody's going to hear Joseph.
Yeah.
He's a young man. He's masculine. They've made him the head of the house. Nobody will not believe the woman's story.
That's where the fear of the Lord.
Yeah.
It's the woman that fears the Lord shall be praised. That is it. That's where the fear of the Lord comes in. That's the woman that fears it. So that's where it comes in. The self-regulation comes in, because the spirit is now subject to the almighty intelligence. That's our own AI. That's AI, almighty intelligence, which is a combination of artificial intelligence and, human intelligence. Yeah, so that's where the fear of the Lord comes in.
Yeah, because I've always worried that if a woman accuses a man of anything, he can't come out of it. I really don't know how. There's no way. You can't. I still dealt with a case recently where, it was very on social media. The lady literally at some point was in tears, sharing her story. By the time, of course, called the guy, why did you do this? Shared his own part of the story. You realize that yes, he has his fault, but it wasn't as bad
as it was purported.
Yes, and with the tears. And it wasn't as bad. But if at some point I say, stop talking. You don't understand. You can't win. You talk, she talk. You can't win, because you will talk as a man. Hey, and then she will call, sister. You can't win that. You can't. And that's the argument of the men that, look, we are also a victim here. And my last question, because we have to wrap up.
This has been fun though.
It has.
It's been
It's like we've put you on hot seat on behalf of all the women of the world. The last one really is about the argument that women raise these men who are abusive. There's a way my mother raised me that can't just allow me feel there's something right about hitting a woman. She raised me well. What is missing, okay, from the motherly training now in men who come out so vicious, so abusive, not respecting women? We're seeing a huge number of that nowadays, particularly with the young population. I mean, objectifying women. Which day was I at the Nigerian airport, and you see the lady passing, and the guys were just objectifying. Yeah, maybe she did BBL, but they were talking so loud she could hear. And what's going on? Because those people were raised by a mother.
And that's the answer right there. Where's the father? Where is the father?
I'm
arguing. Where is the father?
I'm arguing that my respect for women today, and I mean it, did not come from my father. It came from my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, because she was very intentional about how she believed we should behave as men.
Yeah.
It didn't come from my dad. Honestly, I can argue it to say that my dad doesn't think like I do regarding to treating women. So why are we not having more women being intentional to say, I'm not going to have my son disrespectful to other women? It won't happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I totally...
Because I agree that women are not doing a good job. I get that part. But I'm saying that I've also seen that some of these men didn't also have mothers who were intentional.
I totally agree with you. It's going to take both. And if you notice, it's going to take both. It's when God created man, he said male and female created he them, and then he told them have dominion.
Yeah.
If we're going to have the full expression of the dominion that God intended for us, it's going to take both, right? Yes. There is the role of the father in the life of a son and the life of a daughter. There's the role of the mother in the life of the son and in the life of the daughter. One cannot be there prioritized by the other. Women have to raise their sons to be, look at what is all the book of Proverbs says, the book of King Lemuel as was taught by his mother, right? Do you think Solomon would have become king if his mother did not speak up for him, right? Even look at when Jesus was on earth.
Yeah.
James and John, it was the mother that went to
advocated.
So women definitely have a role to play in raising boys to be men. How to treat a woman, how to be responsible.
Yes.
Because many times women, because of that whole male privilege, thing, some boys are so spoiled even by their mothers. So the boy doesn't know how to cook, doesn't know how to take care of himself, doesn't know how to appreciate.
Child, she's talking, oh, you must cook well.
Exactly.
Don't embarrass me, husband house. You left the male child.
Nobody prepares the male child for the role that they're going to transition into. I was taught
to cook at the age of 9.
Exactly. So it all comes back to, that intentionality of, bringing in the balance and wholeness, the mother doing what they need to do with that intentionality and not perpetuating it at the home front where the male child is made a demagogue in the house, okay, and the female child is the one that is to serve. But of course the father also being there,
Absolutely.
to balance it out. So that's little boy grows up wholesomely and can go out. I mean, I can say this with full chest.
Yes.
For my husband as well. My husband was raised in the home where there was no preference because you are a boy, therefore you are excused from. There's hardly, I celebrate, there's no food my husband cannot cook.
Wow.
There is no household chores that night. In fact, my husband, when he cleans the house, I even feel bad because I feel so spoilt, right? But I receive it,
Yeah.
He will clean. There was one time he was killing the kitchen so much. I started to think, is this man obsessive, compulsive? Like, no, and he told me, I said, why do you sweep? He said, because I don't want the ants to grab anything and, mess up our things. Because he was raised by a mother who paid attention and he saw his father in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
So it was balanced. So that's what I would always say, that it's going to take both. Each person being responsible for their own side of the street, not abandoning it. Women, men, but women, because I'm a woman, I'm a mother, just being intentional as well, not slacking in what we need to do. And I believe that with that, we're going to raise amazing men like you and amazing men like my husband, and and our world will be re-engineered.
How do people reach you guys?
Okay, well, we have our social media handles. We're on Savaye. That is our business name. Savaye, SAVAYE.com. On Instagram, Israel Augusta. We're one identity. On Facebook, it's Israel Augusta. Hey, Ben.
I go love.
Oh yeah, I go on song. No. Yeah, we appreciate. But I think you're doing a good job too. I can hear that you're doing a good job too. Getting it well done for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, we don't want to end, but we have to.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Awesome episode. Another beautiful episode of Leadership Podcast with me. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.